We've had this question a few times, so we thought we'd make a video. Valorant on Steam Deck. Yes, it is possible via Windows. Obviously, this does not function on Steam OS because of the Riot anti-cheat using the Vanguard system. However, it does work fine on Steam Deck. As you can see from the footage here as well, we're getting a good solid 60 frames per second, and I'll take you through the settings in just a second. But I do want to point out a couple of flaws with this. I don't know if these are just general Windows issues or specific to the Steam Deck with Windows running, but just to make you guys aware that you do need to run this as an administrator. So if you do download and install the game, it does require a reboot, which is always a pain on Steam Deck if you are dual booting Windows. So be aware that it will take a few reboots, especially if you miss a step here. So once you've done the initial reboot, if you forget to run this as administrator from that clean boot, then you will have problems. As long as you run it as administrator without opening it at all first, you shouldn't have any problems. And you'll know that you won't have any issues because you'll get through the start screen here, and then you'll go into the game loading screen and you won't hear any sounds. However, if you do start this up normally, you will most likely get a message saying that you need to restart your computer. And if you do then close this and run it as administrator after without rebooting your computer, it will look like it starts up, but then you'll hear a sound in the background of a pop-up window coming, and it will tell you that Riot Vanguard has crashed. Now the game will continue to load at this point, but it will then give you a Vanguard initialized error. So the only way to get around this is to reboot your computer and then run it as administrator from the offset. So do be aware of that, but if you do want to get around it, just make sure you run it as administrator from a clean boot. Once we're in game though, I did keep this at 60 frames per second on medium settings. I didn't feel the need to put this up to high, and this was running at 1080 as I'm actually running this on Windows 10 using the JSOX M2 dock. And if you want an install guide for Windows, check that out in the description below, as well as links to the M2 dock and other SSDs as well. It is worth noting that I have also done the UMA frame buffer fix, which increases the VRAM available to 4 gig, so that might help with performance here in Valorant. So I will leave a link for that in the description below as well. So if you do want to run Valorant on Steam Deck, docked is definitely the best way. I was using a mouse and keyboard here. Although Valorant is very different to a lot of games I've played. It seems like a bit of a mix between CSGO and Overwatch with the different abilities and the buy phases, etc. But it was nowhere near as responsive as things like Modern Warfare 2. So it was quite a weird step coming from Modern Warfare 2, as I've been playing a lot of that recently, into Valorant, which is a very slower setup and a very quick time to kill as well. So you do have to be accurate. But if you do want to play it on Steam Deck, it is actually working incredibly well on Windows on Steam Deck. And if you are going to use a controller, you can use SWIC-D, which will allow you to use your controller perfectly fine, which is also part of our Windows 10 guide if you want to get that set up. Let us know in the comments below if you're going to be diving into Valorant or what other games you'd like us to test up on the channel. If you do want to support us so we can test many more games, then please consider supporting us on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.
Last player standing.